Welcome back, everybody. It's the next episode of the Fearless Business Podcast. I am your host, Robin Waite, the Fearless Business Coach. I have got a very illustrious guest with us today in the form of Todd Palmer. Todd is a 20-year entrepreneur. You're a veteran, really, in the business world, aren't you, Todd? Business coach, keynote speaker, and author. And we're going to be hearing all about Todd's amazing new book, From Suck to Success, during this podcast interview. So welcome to the show, Todd. You've got lots of thoughts around kind of some of the things, because like business is hard, I think, or it's harder, I feel, in this day and age that we live in now, because there's sort of 10 times the number of businesses out there. It's the global world at your fingertips, global marketplace. But actually, I think that's made it a lot harder to get found for many business owners. But there's reasons why business owners end up with certain levels of success and others struggle. So what are your thoughts on that?
For me, I found that it's typically the bottom. There's a bottleneck in every business. I hate to say it. Typically, the bottleneck is us as the entrepreneurs. I know I found for myself that all the problems in my business stemmed from one source. It was people. Well, who picked the people on the team? I did. Who picked the clients? I did. Who placed the candidates? I did. My company was Diversified Industrial Staffing. It was always a people problem. And as I've been coaching, I retired from that business 4 years ago, and I've been coaching full time. And with the dozens of clients I've worked with, it typically comes back to it's always people. And the flip side of that is, talking about how hard it is to do business. So much of it's our mindset. Is something happening to us or is something happening for us? Quick story, March of last year, I was supposed to be on 6 different stages in 3 different countries, talking to entrepreneurs and speaking from stage to my ideal coaching clients potentially. Well, I lost all of those stages within 2 weeks due to the COVID shutdown. And what do? Well, I pivoted, decided COVID was happening for me, not to me. And in that pivot, I spoke directly with 42 CEOs in 67 days. In that process, I got 0 clients. You're thinking, oh my gosh, what an awful marketing pivot that was. The blessing in there is that those 42 people became my greatest sales force. And they connected me with their friends and their colleagues and then their network. And my business has grown almost 400% during a time where my ideal marketing vehicle of being on stage was taken from me. So I just think that if an entrepreneur has the right mindset going into some of these things, they can really find the opportunity within a lot of these strategies.
It was interesting, wasn't it? Because I had very similar sort of thing happen as well. I had about a dozen fairly sizable speaking engagements booked sort of pre-COVID. And then here in the UK, it was March the 26th was D-Day or C-Day for us, I think we should probably call it. And all of that just went. And I mean, thankfully, many of those got sort of repositioned online. So, it all wasn't lost. But probably in that one moment, I think I said goodbye to about 15K's worth of revenue, in those speaking gigs, which I'd already booked, or at least it was paused. But it did make me kind of rethink and realize that, what a great opportunity it was, because you kind of get stuck in doing the same old thing each and every day, right, and don't really question it when it's kind of working all right. So I bet you probably see a lot of CEOs who, you're sat there thinking, oh my God, I can't believe you're actually still doing it this way. Like, why are you doing it that way?
It happens to me pretty much on a daily, if not weekly basis. And we are creatures of habit. And in being a creature of habit, we seek dependability, reliability, and security. And when I'm coaching my CEOs, half the time my job is to do pattern interruption so that they can realize that there's a different way to do things. And I always go back to, as I talk about my book, From Suck to Success, the classic case is my mistakes. I don't talk about it. I just say other people. I'd rather just say, listen, I was in a very crappy spot that I put myself into, trying to do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And when that basically got me $600,000 in debt on a $2 million run rate. So anybody who's got an ounce of accounting understanding basically is like, oh my God, you were upside down. You crashed the business. Basically, yeah, if I was a boat, I was the Titanic. I hit the iceberg because I drove into it. It was a mistake. It was my choice. And I finally, at September of 2006, had to reach up my hand and ask for help, and I hired a coach. And I realized the first thing he said is I had to change my mindset, because he used to call it the doom loop. All you're doing is repeating the imposter syndrome in your head about how you're not good enough, how you're not enough. The world is against you. All these things I was saying to myself that I thought was one time motivating, which is now becoming debilitating. Old pattern, new pattern. And with his help, in 8 years, we got out of that debt. I had to fire my entire company in September 9th of 2006, start over, and change the way I hired. We used to hire people with backgrounds and experiences in recruiting. I pivoted into hiring for DNA, not for resume, because I could train people to be a good recruiter. I couldn't train people to have our core values. They either had them or they didn't, and paid off all the debt in 8 years and made the Inc. 5000 here in the United States as one of the fastest growing companies, a crazy 6 times. So by shifting my mindset, stop doing the things that don't work, pivoting to things that will work, That's how the business became successful.
Sounds to me like there was probably quite a bit of, I don't know if this is the right word, Todd, maybe you can correct me, but a bit of a grieving process there, which you had to go through in order to kind of let go of what the old Todd was doing and like start to embrace how the new Todd was going to see the world.
Oh, that's a great way to phrase it. It's the opening of my book is my grieving process. The book starts on September 9th, 2006. And when I fired everybody, and the opening sequence of the book is basically Todd sitting behind his office on a parking curb, crying his eyes out because of all the choices and mistakes he had made. So yeah, absolutely. There was a total grieving process. Not only was there a grieving process, but as I moved through the arc of the business and the success it had, there was also a grieving process for my loss of my sense of self and who I thought I was, not just as an entrepreneur, but as a leader, as a partner, all of those different things, so that I could pivot into who I genuinely needed to be. And I had to do a grieving process with a massive loss of sense of self for who I used to be.
It's fascinating. I was talking to somebody earlier on about a $10 million mistake which they made.
Wow.
And I was like, I pulled them up on the word mistake for a start. But what had happened was they sold their business, and because of the structure of the deal, unfortunately, the new owners of the business, it fell through after about 18 months. And so they lost pretty much all of that 10 million.
Oh,
goodness. And he saw it as a massive mistake. I was like, listen, in order to properly understand money and your future and how to like build wealth, you couldn't have actually paid $10 million to get you that level of education.
Right.
You had to go through that in order to understand it and feel it and embrace it, and then, go through the change process. So I think sometimes kind of calling these things as a mistake as such, sometimes it's the terminology which we use. And I bet when you're sat there listening to some CEOs as well, you're probably like, hang on a second, you probably shouldn't speak like that. There's a better way to look at things.
Oh, absolutely. What's the opportunity? Yeah. I used to think that failure was a determination of not only the business, but of my self-worth as a human being, my self-worth as a leader. And every failure was tragic, and it was final, and it was, just put any adjective of enormity attached. And that's what I used to think. What I realized that when we make a mistake or something just doesn't work, it's a learning opportunity. It's really, if our journey as an entrepreneur is a hero's journey, and that's one foot in front of the other, and something doesn't work, or we do make a blunder, or there is a mistake that occurs, it's a learning opportunity. We can learn from that. And then we polish that stone, and we continue to hone it and refine it, It took us about 3 years at Diversified to figure out the best process to get out of debt. And it all started with, and I again talk about this in the book, is what was my intention, not my expectation. And my intention was to get out of debt. I didn't have an expectation of how I was going to do it. By being able to stay in an intentional mindset, I was actually more creative, more understanding of when things didn't go well, because we learned, well, if there are 10 things in this process that it's included, 5 of them worked great, 5 of them didn't work great. Get rid of the 5 that don't work great, keep the 5 that do work great, pivot through those, iterate, and learn. Then, and only then, were we able to get to a place of success, find that inflection point between an increased demand and a diminished supply in the human capital space in order to get out of debt. And oh, by the way, we can get paid faster and charge more, improving our margins. But by all means, it was all through skin to knees, falling down, getting back up, and learning forward.